And joining us now to read some of today's headlines from newspapers around the world is Arise News analyst and my very good friend, Vimbai Mutihiri Ekpayang.
Good morning, good morning. I'm very well, and yourself?
Good morning, Vimbai.
Recovering from your birthday and the flowers and the...
I haven't recovered from that one.
All right.
I don't think I'll recover until the next birthday.
Listen, I think I might need to log off on Valentine's Day because your man is winning husband of the year right now.
Wow.
I love it for you.
Thank you. Shout out to Myra.
Shout out to
Right?
Myra. Shout out to Myra.
Exactly. The unofficial co-anchor of
Yes,
Morning Show.
absolutely.
All right, everybody. Good morning, and it's great to be back here again. As tradition dictates, we start with this day newspaper for our newspaper review today. And of course, Better Edu continues to dominate front pages. Although this day is taking a different angle to this, it is the dominant story across all newspapers. So this day, reporting Contagion as Tunji-Ojo distanced self from payments by Humanitarian Ministry, Edu suspended, Umar Farouk detained, Tinubu directs EFCC to thoroughly scan all financial transactions in ministry, and charges Edu-led panel to carry out detailed financial architecture of social investment programs. Minister denied access to villa, pass seized, and we're going to look at the story from the angles of other newspapers, but this is truly the biggest conversation that is being had today. Before we look at how other newspapers have reported the story, let's look just below the masthead. Obi, Tinubu's securitization of 7.3 trillion naira debt owed CBN illegal. So this is all about how our opposition leader, Peter Obi, is also joining this conversation about accountability. And he's this time directing his conversation to the federal government. And the newspaper reports that the businessman come politician said the CBN Act expressly states that all borrowings under Ways and Means cannot be converted to debt or securitized if the CBN is the underwriter. He pointed out that the idea of securitization of illegal borrowings from the CBN and transferring the same into Nigeria's debt stock portends danger to the future of the Nigerian economy and increases the debt burden of the nation. It is even more worrisome because these accumulations of debts are not being transparently and productively utilized or accounted for. So while the federal government goes after ministers in cabinet, Peter Obi is going after the federal government and saying, we're watching you. I also want to see what you have done with your books. So that is on the front page of this day. Let's quickly move to the Daily Sun. As I had said, we're going to look at this developing story from the now suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Better Edu, and how other newspapers have reported it. The Daily Sun has decided to go with suspended Minister Better Edu whisked away in security truck, denied access to Tinubu, Aso Rock tag withdrawn. President directs Finance Minister to conduct diagnostic investigations. EFCC begins grilling today. Now, an angle that broke of the story accompanied with video footage was a video that showed, we didn't actually see her in person, but there was a video that showed alleged Better Edu arriving in the standard ministerial SUV and then being escorted out by a pickup truck. So, the conversation there is that she went to go and see the president. She was denied access as apparently her suspension was happening while she was in transit and her passes were taken away and she was escorted out of Aso Rock. So, it feels a little bit, feels like a humiliating way to handle this issue. But again, this is up for conversation, subject to discussion. Just at the top of the newspaper, EFCC grills detains ex-Humanitarian Affairs Minister over alleged 37 billion naira misappropriation. Of course, fallout of the same story. Like I said at the beginning of the week, EFCC, our friends at EFCC are very, very busy this 2024. As social media is saying, they no grief for anybody this year. So that's what's happening on the Daily Sun. Let's go to the Guardian newspaper. Of course, continuation of the story. EFCC quizzes embattled Edu. Others as anti-graft uproar heightens. Same story from Peter Obi. Obi deplores huge borrowing, profligate spending on luxury. Now, just a fallout from yesterday's conversation that we had regarding the distribution of palliatives as bags of rice. At the bottom of The Guardian here, there is a report saying the reps blame Agric Ministry for delay in sharing Tinubu's palliative. Of course, we know that various constituents are up in arms because people are anticipating the receipt of their bags of rice. However, the distribution across the country has not been even, and the lawmakers are now kicking back and saying the Ministry of Agriculture, who is charged and mandated with the distribution, are not doing a great job of doing so. Now over to the Vanguard. Let's shift our attention to security issues. The Vanguard is leading with this powerful image of the Plateau Peace Walk that took place yesterday in Jos, as we see Catholic Archbishop of Jos Diocese, Most Reverend Ishaya Yakubu, leading other religious leaders during the Plateau Mourns and Peace Walk to the Government House over the recent attack in some local government areas of the state in Jos. That was yesterday. And of course, we also see below that CAN leads protest against continued killings in Plateau. So great to see religious leaders coming out. Everybody is dressed in black, symbolic, powerful. However, as much as this is symbolic and powerful, I know what people want to see are action. People want to see results. Above the masthead of the Vanguard, in the middle window, insecurity gunmen invade Abuja estate, kidnap 10 people. So we're going to go to the Daily Trust from there. We're maintaining our focus on security. Daily Trust: bandits return to Kaduna Abuja highway and abduct 30. So in this report, there is a description of how the road was blocked. That's on the Kaduna Abuja highway, and bandits were intermittently attacking people, abduct 30 people. So lawmaker Shehu Sani tweeted on the platform X, or do we say he X'd now? Anyway, he said, just when we felt safer last night, Sunday, kidnappers returned to the Kaduna Abuja road. They blocked the road and abducted scores of persons around 9 p.m. near Katari village. Two of my honorable friends from both the ruling and opposition parties had to run through the bush like Usain Bolt, but despite this incident, there is a stronger security presence along the route than it used to be in the past. So he is attesting to the fact that there's a stronger security presence, yet this is still happening. And Daily Trust chose to lift this tweet because it highlights the fact that this is no longer a problem for the common man. He says, two honorable friends from both the ruling and opposition parties, these are quote-unquote VIPs who are most likely traveling in vehicles prepared to deal with these kinds of scenarios, and they're still being subjected to this, and they had to alight from their vehicles and run by foot and escape into the bush. That is the security situation currently on the Kaduna Abuja highway. Now let's move over to the Nigerian Tribune as we look at some more political issues. Of course, the front bold headline is all about Better Edu. Better Edu may face EFCC today. Tinubu dismisses Irukera Oko, which has, of course, already been discussed in great detail earlier in this program. But at the very bottom on the right-hand window, Doyin Okupe resigns from the Labour Party. Now, this resignation is interesting when we look at his reasons. He says, of course, he begins by explaining the backdrop of how Doyin himself and others ended up in the Labour Party. Of course, we know that they jumped ship from the PDP. Now, he says, we did contest the election on the platform of the Labour Party and lost. This makes it exceedingly difficult for me to continue to stay in the Labour Party, which is ideologically rooted in the left of the centre. And I quote, I have been a rightist and a liberal Democrat all my life. All my entire life. It is therefore this ideological conflict that makes me seek an exit so that I may continue my political activities with liberalism, sincerity, and freedom. Something for us to dissect, because it's often said in Nigerian politics that nobody aligns based on ideology, that it's always a matter of how you can play the politics to your benefit. So this is a conversation to be had. Is this a genuine departure based on ideology, or is it a fallout of the conviction that came out at the end of the year? Something for us to look at in our conversation later. Very quickly to the business day for just a little bit of business news. Foreign investors exit from Nigerian stocks nears 3-year high. So the Business Day is reporting that foreign investment outflows from Nigerian stocks rose in November to the highest level in nearly 3 years, despite reforms that spurred a rally in the market last year. And the backdrop of this is, of course, that foreign investors offloaded their stocks in anticipation of devaluing of the Naira. That's all we've got in Nigerian newspapers. Quickly to The Guardian UK. The Guardian UK has got two shocking stories. The first of which is just below the masthead, which is scramble to clear victims of post office fraud scandal. Now, this is a scandal that's been playing out in the UK media for a while, which involves sub-postmasters who were contracted by the post office and were given a system called Horizon IT to use to do their accounts. And now this system mistakenly recorded and reported the missing funds, that there were funds missing, and these people were actually tried and convicted for fraud. Innocently so, it was actually the system's fault. So now, of course, in anticipation of the election coming, the Rishi Sunak-led government is doing everything possible to make sure that these convictions are overturned and that these people are compensated for the trouble that they went through because of this fraud scandal. And beneath that, $10,000. That is the going rate to flee horrors of Gaza. So Palestinians desperate to leave Gaza are paying bribes to brokers of up to $10,000 to help them exit through Egypt, and that's according to an investigation by The Guardian UK. So, a robust look at what is going on from the front pages of newspapers, both home and abroad. It's clear to see what the dominant stories are. Unfortunate trend that security continues to be a dominant trend here in Nigeria, but I hand the reins over to you, Rufai. You have the floor.
I mean, a couple of things. Thank you so much, Vimba. A couple of things. Number one, we're talking about Mr. Emefiele and the court ruling today. I also want to employ the court. There are many other people in society that have filed cases about humanitarian or human rights breach. They should speedily attend to those cases, because getting justice too is a problem with our court system. It's grinds and grinds and grinds. Let's not forget those people. Secondly, Mr. Tunji-Ojo's reason for leaving the Labour Party is funny to me. I felt Mr. Tunji-Ojo could have just said, oh, I'm leaving the Labour for my own personal reasons, not now talking ideology. Didn't he know that the Labour Party was a hugely leftist party before he got in there? And that's the hypocrisy of politicians. I have challenged Peter Obi on this many times, that you're a free market capitalist and you're in the Labour Party, which is tilting towards almost socialism. And he says, we have divergent views and all of that, but we can work and rally things out. But I've always challenged ideology, because ideology too is necessary in politics, very important. So Mr. Tunji-Ojo, we're now saying ideology didn't align after he chose to be a DG of a presidential campaign of a purely leftist party. He's not talking about ideology now. No, spare me. Moving on. The other thing I want to talk about is the return of insecurity. And we've been talking about it since President Tinubu got back. I think the honeymoon period is over. The insecurity is back. The bandits are raiding. There was a report this morning on Arise TV, and kudos to our journalists for that, as regards to kidnapping in Abuja metropolis. These bandits are coming in. And you can see them perpetrating all sorts of nefarious acts. And also, what happened on the Abuja-Kaduna Highway, we've returned to those wild days of Wild Wild West. Yeah. So what will President Tinubu do as regards it? And he must secure the rail lines and secure other parts of the country. We must be able to do everything to ensure that the needful is done to secure the people. Is this how we want investors to come? And Mr. Peter Obi was right as regards the securitization of ways and means. It is illegal. Let's call it spade a spade. I know a lot of people have made all sorts of arguments for it. It's for the government to be able to clear their books. No. During Buhari's time, we restated the fact that it's illegal. And the fact is, why are we heavily borrowing? Why are we heavily borrowing? If we are heavily borrowing and the money is being done in this way, where you are having close to $500 million sent to private accounts, then it's suspect now. Because we keep going to ways and means every time. Government revenue is poor. We've devalued the currency. We're at an all-time low. We're borrowing, and we're hearing also cases of, allegations of corruption around this borrowing. Then it speaks volume. The government should learn to cut their quota according to their. And that's why I was asking deliberately yesterday, that should we really have a budget we cannot afford? Yeah, people say developmental strand and everything, but I don't see them. With due respect, I don't see them. We're having 28 trillion budget, but I don't see the developmental stride. Almost half of the money still gets funded away in corrupt activities. Ayo, please, I yield the floor.
Very quickly, a few things I'd like to touch on. First is the CAN. Actually, it was led by ECWA, the head of president of ECWA in Plateau Jos. The peace protest to the government house, and a number of people joined them, not just religious leaders, Christian leaders, and there were Christian from the Catholic Church, from ECWA Church, from Christian Association of Nigeria, from Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, all speaking with one voice that they needed the government to take action, with regards to their members and people in the community who were slaughtered. And they had a 10-point agenda to present to the governor, who said he would transmit onward to the presidency, assuring those who had marched that the president was serious about ending violence and insecurity in that part. And I think it's really important, Vimbai. The reason is because usually when these stories make headlines, and this made headlines 24th, 25th, and the first week of the year, after a while it dies down until the next massacre and the next killings, and then we come out again with a show to say what's really happening. So I really would like for these leaders to maintain the energy until something is done. So if it takes you marching every week or every other week, or going to meet with the governor as often as possible, because they have the influence to do so, to speak up for the people of Plateau State, then absolutely they should do this. I think that now the matters must now come to the hands of advocates, whether you are in Plateau State, you're anywhere in Nigeria. Like I mentioned when this first broke out, that if it affects one part of the country, it affects everybody. It's not just the people of Jos, Plateau who are suffering. We are suffering even here in Lagos State because our brothers and sisters are being killed. So I think kudos to them. The governor should, as he has said, ensure that the president gets the message. The 10-point agenda was like, tag the terrorists, ensure that they're able to protect themselves, since the military have said they are unable to be everywhere at the same time. They've said that there must be rehabilitation for those who are affected. So some really critical things in the 10-point agenda, not just a peaceful protest, but a demand as well. Let's hear from the presidency, an official response from the presidency with regards to this, to this march. Then very quickly, I wanted to highlight very quickly, because I know our time is up, this issue around the digitization, or shall I say, moving an online portal for application of passports. I think this is very important because it's a game changer for us. Automation. In fact, automation, yes. In fact, what the Ministry of Interior has said is that they're going to make this process 2 weeks, Vimbai. You will get your green passport in 2 weeks. That is a miracle. So what you do is you go to the online platform, you fill in your details, submit your relevant documents, take your pictures according to international standards, and then go in for your biometrics, and in 2 weeks you get your passport. That is fantastic. But what did they say? The taste of the pudding is what? In the eating. I hope it works.
We look forward to tasting it.
Well, thank you so much, Vimbai.
Thanks for having me.